Desiree said, welcome everyone to today's session. We're so grateful that you can be with us to explore this. I guess it's a very challenging topic, but also a very important topic for us to engage with and really get to understand, and particularly how procurement professionals can really engage in seeing real change in situations for children in supply chains. As the title suggests, we want to look at the investor and grassroots perspectives today, and how those play a pivotal role in addressing child labour in the supply chain. But before we jump in, I just want to quickly introduce today's speakers. So I'm Quintin Lake. I'm a founder and director at 58, and we bring together insights and research, technology around addressing the challenges of modern slavery and improving working conditions in the supply chain. A core focus of our work is something called the PACE Partnership, the Partnership Against Child Exploitation, and that seeks to identify effective approaches to preventing and reducing the worst forms of child labour in fragile contexts, and we'll touch more on that as we go through today. We then have Rocky Kiro, who you can see in the middle there. Rocky is the CEO and co-founder of African Geomine and Technology Services in the DRC. It's a research institute really working in DRC, aiming to raise awareness of artisanal mining environments, their challenges, as well as effective ways of exploring and extracting minerals in these environments, and especially about improving conditions and approaches to improve livelihoods in the mining sector in DRC. So, and Kiro is joining us at a silly time from Canada, where he's currently there on a research project. So thank you, Kiro. Goodness, you have to excuse my cold. Next, we have Dalia Jacob. Dalia is an expert in child rights and protection, and she's the program manager at the Kailash Satyarthi Foundation. She leads the implementation of its child-friendly village program in 6 Indian states, where there is a high production of mica, and she's going to share more of their model in today's session. So thanks, Dalia, for joining. We have Josephine Carlson. Josephine is secretary to the Church Investors Group, and she coordinates the investors engagement work for its 65 member organizations that make up the CIG. That includes churches, pension funds, charities in a number of countries. And her career background is in international development with a strong emphasis on child rights. So she brings both that grassroots and an investor perspective in one. And then finally, we have Mariana Boema. And Mariana is the founder of IFED. It's a civil society organization that works to ensure good governance of natural resources in the Masisi and Rubaya areas of Eastern DRC, and particular focus on the role of women in mining and supporting good and improving approaches for people around the mining sites. So really grateful for the panel and all of the insight and expertise that they bring. But I guess before we jump into today's session, I wanted to quickly explore the challenge of child labour in relation to the supply chain, and minerals in particular. And I guess child labour it's a geographical challenge. It occurs in certain commodities and in geographies, and exists because of the significant challenges around poverty and lack of livelihood opportunities, and in times corruption and other factors that all lead to situations where, unfortunately, the latest global estimate is that 160 million children are in child labor globally. Although for many of them, their work is an essential part of their vocational training and livelihood development. But actually, for a shocking proportion, for 79 million of them, they're in what's called hazardous work, or the worst forms of child labor, work that is harmful and hazardous to their psychological or emotional well-being, or has long-term impacts on them. And I mean, that number, 79 million, it's more than 10 times the population of New Zealand, which is where I'm from. and that figure has been rising significantly since 2016. So it's going in the wrong direction at the moment. Jump on to the next slide, please, Desiree. So one of the things I want us to look at today is that, I guess, typically supply chains are understood in the manner that you see here on screen. So they're a linear set of actors, and I guess it starts at the supply chain, starts or finishes at either end, depending on where you look from. But typically for due diligence and supply chain compliance activities, they start at the product manufacturer and try to work their way down through the supply chain, past the manufacturers, the smelters, in the case of mining, all the way back to the site origin. There's a number of recent studies by the OECD and others that are finding that actually most spending in energy on due diligence happens at this product component smelter kind of area. Of course, there's lots of activity that happens down to the mine site, but unfortunately most of the spend and activity happens far away from the commodity origin, or where child labor exists. And if we jump onto the next one, please. And so I feel like to more meaningfully understand and identify and address child labor, we need to look from the bottom-up perspective. So start with the origin, start with where commodities are being extracted or farmed, and understand what the potential is to look then across different sectors or different parts of the supply chain to find more effective ways of addressing child labor. Particularly with something like tantalum, which is one of the commodities that is mined in Eastern DRC. It comes from coltan, and it feeds into many industries. So electronics, electronic vehicles, aviation through capacitors, but also is used in eyeglasses. It's used in artificial joints, in medical, and with hearing aids, and in the military even. So we really have to find ways for companies and investors to work together across industries to see better and faster impact where child labor exists, and to move away from unnecessary spending or duplication of effort that doesn't materially reduce or prevent or impact the factors around child labor. So as we said, we want to explore this issue from the grassroots and investor perspective, both in Africa and in Asia. And I'm excited for the panel who are going to share their insights as we go through today's session. So if I can start first with you, Kero, we want to just ask really what, when you think about this challenge, maybe if you can answer two questions for us. So the first is, what kind of work are children doing in DRC around artisanal mining sites? And then what changes would make a difference to providing better pathways for young people to move them away from this hazardous and harmful work? Yeah, thanks, Kira.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to join everybody. So I'm pleased to share with everyone this how this is challenging from us in DRC. So firstly, I want to answer some questions, and the one is what children are doing in mining in DRC. So in DRC, there are many children that those are abandoned around the site mining. So they are doing many jobs in a local place, especially in the mining sites. They are doing, firstly, they are crushing minerals, the waste minerals, for them to gain some small money. And secondly, they are doing some small business. Those small business is to find the way to get money. And most of them, they are not scholars. So they are doing, instead of going to study, so children are preferred to make some small business in the mining to gain money. And then that is a big challenge because they are not identified even most of them are abandoned. So after doing the small business, they can also wash minerals, they waste minerals, and they can transport small package of coltan, and also to transport water, because the main problem also in the mining site are water. Water is the effect, because they need to wash minerals from the up to bottom. So in the up, they don't have water. So children are there to transport water until the bottom, and then the diggers can wash easily their minerals. So there are a lot of kind of jobs those are children doing in the mining sites. They challenge us also for many problems, because according to our government don't allow children to work in the mine site, but they don't have no way out. They need money, even government need money. The the diggers also need children to help us, because they are not asking a lot of money. Why that? Diggers many times like children to work around them for having low financial. That is the first one. And if we can go to the second question is what change we need. Yeah, we need a lot of things in the mining sites. Firstly, in nowadays in local sites, the school is free for charge. So we need to sensibilize every children to be back to the school. As the school is free for charge, they can learn more and be back to their school. Secondly, we need to sensibilize most of time the children to not going inside the mining, even it's their own way to gain money, but NGO can make more sensibilization, even to organize some canteen like cafeteria to the school, to allow them, whenever they go to the school, they can gain more, even small foods, because they are focused for the hunger. Most of children, they can't allow to go to the school because they don't even have the fee, even to they can't have even some food to eat. If we sensibilize them to, whenever they go to the school, it's free for charge, they can gain more, something like food. We can give them even some clothes, something like that. They can change their way, but in their minds nowadays, as they are working like some restaurants, something like to gain more money, in their mind it's changed. So we need more sensibilization. We need more to make the project with impact in local sites, because most of projects are making in the mining site are not directly touch the children. It's like something to, for me, I can say the more projects are not focused on children. Why that? Is in now until nowadays, projects are financial there, but no change until now, because the money is still doing something else than focus on children. So we need more time to sensibilization, and children can move from mining site until to their school, and they can do their own life. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. That's a really helpful introduction, and of course, very challenging that, as you say, that I guess children are, that currently the only opportunity really for them, that if the schools that should be free are not available, and the only work that is available is in the mine site, then of course that there are so many young people working in and around the mines. So thank you. We'll maybe come back to you with some other questions when we get to the Q&A in a little moment. Yeah, so I guess to carry on from that, Dalia, we switch continents entirely to India, and maybe you can share from your experience with the Child Friendly Villages program around MICA in India. I guess first of all, why Child Friendly Villages as part of a solution to this problem, and then I guess how do Child Friendly Villages sustainably tackle child labor? Thanks, Dalia.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon. It is 12 p.m. in India, like we are almost half of the day. And on behalf of our children and KCF, first I'd like to thank you, SPP, for adding child labor and supply chain as one of the key sessions and the first session of the conference. That is really interesting and encouraging. And speaking of child-friendly village program, which is KCF's flagship program, I must first speak of the challenges we faced when we started our work in Northeast India's mica mining villages in 2005, when there were approximately 20,000 plus children were working in the mining of mica. We first visited the mica area in 2005 by our founder and guide Kailash Satyarthi, who later won Nobel Peace Prize in 2014. And he was accompanied by David Kirkhope from Estee Lauder Company, which is a long-term partner and funder of ours. These villages are like almost no-go area with inaccessible terrain surrounded by forest and with the presence of insurgent Naxalites group who never let anyone outsiders come to the village and inspect or talk to the community there at that time. And large numbers of children were involved in mica collection at that time, and opportunity for education was next to nothing for the children in the villages. And villages all lack basic infrastructures, and welfare support assistance from the government was nothing to them. Then after 2 years of research and listening to the need of the communities, the child-friendly village was deemed to be the intervention that would work to keep children safe and tackle child labor in mica mining and exclude them from the mines. So we designed the program which will cater best to the best need of the community and children to provide them the support and assistance they require based on their demand and their request and their need. The idea of child-friendly village was initially conceived by our founder, Kailash Satyarthi, to prevent the exploitation of children at the grassroots level. Mr. Satyarthi believes that to eradicate child labor from its many forms and manifestations, action should begin from each village and individual household. Safe families and safe and secure communities are the first step towards a caring society and child-friendly world, which we as a KCF believe is our mission and goal. And a child-friendly village ensures a robust safety net around each child, and every child is free, safe, and educated. As we mentioned before starting this conference, focus is on bottom-up approach, and our program, Child-Friendly Village, embodies a bottom-up approach driven from the community. The children and community lead the program from the front here. They identify need, challenges, they devise solutions to tackle the challenges they identify, and they approach appropriate government elected representatives to solve the problem. So they make change happen. We as the KCF is a facilitator and guide in this context. So when you ask why child-friendly village, well, over the 15 years or 16 years, we have proven that the program is successful, having rescued 12,000 children from mica mines in 500 child-friendly villages by 2022. And with the goal we have the goal to work in every mica dependent village by 2023, which will cover a total of 750 villages, where then support approximate 10,000 children who are still working in mica collection. The child-friendly village program is not just about the children. It is working to make the village itself a safe place, ensuring that there are infrastructure accessible to everyone in the village, from healthcare to road to access to water, social labor services, and whatever they need to improve the life of the people and the village as a holistic developed area. So our experience of 16 years of working extensively with the community, especially children, mothers, and parents, and community leaders, it proves that change is possible. Change is possible, but it takes time. What we need to do is we must listen to the children to find solutions and act according to their needs. It is for their challenge, their situation. So we cannot export something is our idea or our knowledge, but we should learn from them, work according to their need and requirement. And if we talk about how does child-friendly village tackle child labor sustainably, the answer is that it is from within the village. It is the children, the mothers, the parents, the community who monitor and tackle the challenge. They monitor children in mines, who stay out of school, who's going to collect mines, mica, and they are the gatekeepers. We as the KCF is like guide them, facilitate them, and give them necessary support when they face challenges they cannot move forward. So the real powerhouse for the vanguard are children, especially children community. And not only is this work driven from the heart and activism KCF, as we are a grassroots movement organization here, and the community, it is data driven. All the change we have successfully created in the villages is documented using data. We can prove that change is happening using accurate data collected over 16 years. We have data for every children we save, put in a safe place, every villages we have developed with the, obviously with the help of the children and community. And there is another reason for eventual total success is that it is not a program run by an NGO. Okay, it is an NGO, but it's not our program. It's just it's an India-based solution. This solution works closely with the local and state government, and of course based on the community decision making. From 2000, when we started individually working with the community, and from 2018 onwards, we have expanded this program with the state government partnership. Now we cover more than almost 500 villages there. And our proudest moment is that this went from a small program in 2005, we started in 9 villages. Now we are in 500 villages. Now this is a mass movement. It's a movement led by children who were once mica collectors or mica mine workers. So now this children movement, they own up the movement, they stand for their right, they stand for their vision and right for education. The children we first met in 2005 are now educated, and some of them have joined KCF team. Now they are taking action in other villages. And many of them have started going to universities. Many have completed functional education. One child has recently completed MSc in forensic science and started working in a leading research company in India. And these children are the vision for the future of India, fulfilling the vision of our Menda Satyarthi. As he always say, he wants all children to be free, safe, and educated. And lastly, do you know that mica is in use everywhere, from the car we drive to the phone we use, our kitchen equipments to the cosmetics, whatever we touch, use daily basis, mica is everywhere. So the children, the kind of children who worked in the mines to collect those scraps for us. So we cannot escape its use, yet we must help the children escape from the mining product. So the child-friendly village, which work with the children, for them, by them. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Dalia. And I think, yeah, what you described as what has become a movement, I guess, a movement for change across the mica region is really encouraging. I guess it's encouraging that something like that is possible, and that you're really seeing it happen before your eyes, and of course over many years, and with lots of learning. But I think, yeah, seeing solutions coming from the village, from the children themselves, and being, I guess, managed and grown by the villagers as that happens over time, feels really essential to, to that sustainable, to long-term change. So thank you. Of course, as we are through the panel, we're switching gears again, this time to look a little bit more from the investor's perspective around some of these challenges. And I want to invite Josephine. Can you share a little bit around, I guess, how is this challenge of child labor seen from an investor perspective? And then secondly, how do you see the insights investors are going to require changing as more and more companies are required to comply with laws around mandatory human rights due diligence and other requirements? Just maybe you can share a bit from your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to my fellow panelists, Dalia and Kira. It's been great to listen to you, because that's really the kind of perspective we need at this end. And I'm speaking to you from London. It's a very sunny morning, so it's wonderful to be part of this group. Yes, I'm going to focus on something that the Church Investors Group is planning to do around tantalum in DRC. because that is an area that's very, very difficult. It's very important. And I think it also illustrates a lot of the issues that we would see as investors. The Church Investors Group is relatively small in terms of money. We represent 25 billion. And when I started, I thought that sounds like an awful lot, but I realized we're one of the smaller ones in this sector. But we have a history of leading change in areas, and we really wanted to get to grips with this. And I think from the investor perspective, responsible businesses perform well in the market, but they also need to perform in the community and support the communities where they have links. And that's exactly why we are trying to do something in this. And responsible investment is also much, much more than managing reputational risk. And it's also a question of not shunning away from the difficult issues. And also to see that you can't solve certain issues in isolation. Yes, we can think about child labor as something that's only child labor, but it isn't. In many of the areas, as our previous panelists have illustrated, it's not something you can look at in isolation. It's related to poverty. It might be related to corruption when you implement due diligence processes. It could be power relationships, and it's not solutions that we from my part of the world can implement on others. We need to have this dialogue, this conversations, and that's really where I see the role for investors to be facilitating that conversation between the people who are involved on the level where you see the effects and on the level where you actually need to make money, because that is also necessary. So why Church Investors Group? And this, churches often have, I worked in international development, as Quentin said, for a long, long time, especially with children, but also with access to education. And churches are often the last organization when a society is breaking apart to be there and support the people in the communities. And churches sort of automatically also have a lot of worldwide contacts, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. So that is one of the reasons we've decided to work with this issue and with focus on Eastern Congo, where there are contacts between our investors and the churches in the area. And as I said, we have a history of sometimes raising questions, starting a coalition that involves a wider investor community as well. So how are we planning to do this? Of course, you could take the line and say, child labor is unacceptable, or you can take the line and say, oh, we need to have a very complex due diligence process and make sure that everything is happening. But I think what is much, much more important for real change is to actually know what's happening in the supply chain, understand the situation, and then discuss how you can bring changes. And that is an approach that's been fairly successful already and tested in relation to modern slavery. And that is something we want to bring to this particular and more granular issue as well. And it has, as we've already mentioned in so many ways, a direct link to alternatives, to education, to income, to looking at what the society looks like where this problem exists. And that will take time. And it will need conversations between companies and investors to see what is realistic, building on the knowledge that we get from the ground. So our approach would be to encourage the companies we're invested in to actually find the problems, because that is the only way that you can find a solution, and also to prevent things in the future and find workable ways of doing that, taking into account the reputational risk, taking into account the risks of costly systems, and to work with something that's actually realistic, because then we can bring change to the children and to their families, because this is not just about the young children, it's about the whole situation, it's about livelihoods, families, what else is available in the community. So what are we trying to do? We are starting a discussion. We're still in the beginning of this, very, very focused on Tantalum project. And we are hoping to have discussions with the trade body and directly also with companies that we are invested in, with the aim to find a way of doing due diligence that doesn't cost so much, so people move away from the areas where the families and the children need income the most. That is one of the things. Also to find ways to do due diligence that can't easily become corrupted. A piece of paper will not solve the situation for the children on the ground. And also to find alternatives for monitoring this, and to have a discussion really about those issues that bring everyone to the table. And I think that is the way that we can find those ways forward. For instance, different models that work in the particular situations where we are, where the mining or other issues involving child labor is happening. So that's from me for now.
Oh, that's really great. Thanks, Josephine, and thanks for for sharing that. That whole, I think, seeing how how investors can better understand this issue and be able to use the influence they have to bring those connections, as you were saying, and is really critical. So thank you. So finally, Mariana, thank you for being patient. We want to really hear from you around the role of women in mining, and how IFED is supporting and enabling change in communities in DRC. Now, I'm very sorry for Mariana, but we had 2 translators for this morning, and both are ill. So I'm afraid Mariana is going to share in French, and I have her presentation translated here. So she is going to let me translate badly on her behalf. So thank you, Mariana.
Merci beaucoup. Merci pour ce moment que vous nous accordez pour passer à notre présentation. Vous me permettez de partager mon slide.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the sharing will work for slides. Sorry, Mariana. If you're okay just to talk it through.
Si c'est pas possible, je peux passer directement à la présentation.
Sorry, do you want to try again now? Try share your screen now.
Thanks, Mariana.
Okay.
Does that work?
Merci beaucoup. Je vais parler sur les rôles des femmes dans l'exploitation minière artisanale. Je vais me démanteler sur l'introduction. Après l'introduction, je vais parler sur la présentation des IFED. Après la présentation des IFED, je vais parler sur pour bien stimuler le changement dans l'exploitation minière au sein de femmes. Et je vais présenter les constants. Après les constats, je vais donner ma conclusion sans plus tarder. En RDC, l'exploitation minière artisanale de minerais a existé depuis plusieurs temps, des anciens, mais à la suite de la promulgation du Code minier de 2002, plusieurs entreprises se sont implantées sur l'état du territoire pour investir dans les secteurs. Certaines situations sont observées depuis lors, d'où l'implication des femmes d'une manière ou d'une autre, tant dans une mine industrielle qu'artisanale, est quasiment invisible. Qu'il se dégage de problématiques de participation de la femme, du respect de la question liée au genre dans le secteur minier, en RDC en général. Il n'est pas aisé d'avoir les statistiques fiables sur le nombre de femmes impliquées dans l'exploitation artisanale au niveau des différents sites miniers dans la région du Nord Kivu. Bien qu'étant égaux, l'homme et la femme sur le plan professionnel et devant la loi, telle qu'est soutenue par les codes miniers, il s'est fait voir que la femme peine à faire attendre sa voix, souffre pour jour de son droit et reste toujours victime des malversations, bas salaires, voire les abus sexuels, physiques et psychologiques. Il est essentiel de comprendre les dimensions ci-dessus afin d'identifier les piliers importants pour le changement et l'amélioration des conditions de la femme dans le secteur minier artisanal. Pour IFED Asbel, il est essentiel de soutenir et d'améliorer les rôles, la participation et les représentativités de femmes œuvrant dans le secteur minier afin de relever les conditions socio-économiques à travers les activités minières. La femme occupe une place incontournable dans la société et surtout dans la chaîne d'approvisionnement de minerais.
May I just, sorry, Marina, may I just say quickly from what you've shared so far, So I'll just say, Mariana was just saying in Congo, especially, I guess artisanal mining exploitation has existed for a long time. But of course, since the mining code came in 2002, many companies have set up operations there. And I guess it has involved women in one way or another, but their role has almost been invisible and quite problematic. It's in terms of the way it has impacted on women. I guess the issue of women's participation and gender imbalance has emerged in Bassi in general and in North Kivu in particular. It's not easy to obtain reliable statistics on the number of women involved in artisanal mining in North Kivu, but men and women, they are equal professionally and I guess before the law. But in saying that, women really struggle to make their voices heard, to see their rights upheld, and are often victims of embezzlement, of low pay, even sexual, physical, or psychological abuse around the mine sites. So it's very intense. Sorry, Mariana, please carry on.
OK. IFED est une organisation à but non lucratif créée en 2015 dont l'objectif est de relever les défis auxquels sont confrontés les femmes et les enfants dans et autour des sites miniers artisanaux. L'idéal pour IFED, c'est d'arriver à l'épanouissement et de l'intégration de toutes les femmes, de tous les jeunes dans les causes entrepreneuriales ainsi que la création d'emplois à travers les projets basés sur les activités génératrices de revenus dans et autour des sites miniers artisanaux au niveau local et national, voire même dans la sous-région des Grands Lacs. Il est donc possible de vivre dans un monde sans pauvreté et où l'apport de la femme contribue au développement et à l'émergence du pays.
Yeah, so I guess it's especially important to understand this, I think, for everyone to understand the change that's required for women in the mining sector. And I think especially to have organizations like IFED that Mariana represents that really try to support and improve the support of women in around the mining sectors. And particularly because of the role that women have to play in seeing the situations change around child labor as well. So understanding the women's perspective, but also supporting their role within like an achievable, sustainable role in mining is critical. Maybe last point, please, Mariana.
Pour bien stimuler les changements de la chaîne d'approvisionnement, il faut réduire la vulnérabilité économique des femmes en fait de rendre compétitives sur le plan économique, et mieux sauvegarder leur dignité. Intensifier les activités de formation et sensibilisation sur la diligence raisonnable et les codes miniers et règlements miniers pour réduire le poids de la culture qui bloque les femmes à travailler au même titre que les hommes. Vulgariser les lois auprès des femmes sur les droits et les devoirs ainsi que le devoir de diligence dans l'exploitation minière artisanale. Mener des actions d'envergure pour l'assainissement de la chaîne d'approvisionnement dans les mines artisanales. Renforcement organisationnel et appui aux femmes pour les AGER, les activités génératrices de revenus. Assurer un plaidoyer pour la valorisation géoscientifique de la femme dans le secteur minier.
Yeah, thanks, Mariana. So I think one of the areas Mariana was just saying that women have to be closely involved in the supply chain so that they their role and their voice is respected and upheld within their work, but also that they have access to the same training to be able to have the same access to equipment, to essentially to be able to have all of the same role and status as men within the mining sector. And particularly that they're supported to help overcome a lot of the societal norms and beliefs that keep the status quo. So thank you, Mariana. I think we'll move on to the questions and answers for everyone to have a chance for the for those who are participating now, we have a question for you as the panel. So of course, we're covering a wide range of areas, and particularly from the grassroots. But we want to hear from your experience. What would you say? I guess from everything that you've heard, what role do you think procurement professionals can play in addressing child labour? We've heard about the challenges of needing to more directly focus on the community, to look from a bottom-up perspective, to see action across industries from an investor's perspective. So from those, what would you say the role procurement professionals can play in addressing child labour?
S'il vous plaît, Rocky, tu peux traduire la question?
Sorry, Marina, we're just asking a question from the panelists. So one moment.
Okay, thank you.
See, Josephine has a hand up.
Yeah.
Yes.
From my perspective, I think the important thing is to actually start to participate in events like this and increase your knowledge as procurement professionals, and not give up, even if it seems perhaps a little bit overwhelming to cover all those things, but to find realistic solutions to it. And also to know that more and more investors are actually looking to those realistic solutions. They're not just holding you to task to get rid of it. We do need to work together. So that would really be my answer to the question. Work together with others, learn as much as possible, realize that this is not an easy thing, but there is also possibilities to make things to change for real.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Josephine. How about others? Have you got, so I see there's been some questions in the chat as we've been talking, but would somebody like to ask it out loud as well?
Yeah, Quentin. So I've been taking note of the questions. So for Rocky, we did have a question around, there was a discussion about school being free of charge, how this would help. Do we have an idea of the cost of going to school, uniform, these kind of costs for children?
Okay, thank you for the question. So nowadays, government improved the school without charge. It means the school will be free. The teachers will be paid by the government. So to make the fee of the uniform and other things, that will belongs to parents. Of course, it's very expensive to pay the uniform for children. It will be expensive, but not more expensive than paying also the school fees. Why that the government is making the school without charge for every children in all of DRC. So that is a good point for children to return to be back to the school, because the parent will only take care for the small food and only the uniform. And what we can do to make a good change, it's like to consider the canteen is the cafeteria for the children in the school. So we can make some projects to finance the small foods for children. Then they can like more school than mining. They can be back. They can leave the mining, because they will know whenever we go to the school, we will take some food. That will be a motivation for them to return, to be back to the school. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Dalia, there was a question for you around the actual numbers of child labour cases in India, because there's a belief that it's been falling over the past 30 years or so. Do we have any numbers behind how many children are actually in child labour?
The latest census by the government of India was in 2011. It marked around 10.1 million children. And then, of course, there were efforts to bring the numbers down, but in the last 2 years, the pandemic has hit the education and the labor system here. And since the schools are closed down and parents lost the livelihood, there are chances that number might increase. So we are still waiting. The census was supposed to happen 2021, but it didn't happen. Now the schools start functioning operationally fully, so we'll get an exact number. How many children are actually went out now who are already working, and children who lost the parental livelihood, so started working. So definitely the number will increase now. So that from the 11 million, so the chance of the children who lost education, parents, so they will start working. And there is also a question that the child labor now exists only in next small group where Naxal area. That is not right, because I said about the child-friendly village program in that area, but we work in other part of the country also through other program. The child labor exists in metro cities also. I said the national capital, New Delhi. There also we rescue children everyday basis. Last week rescued almost 27 children who were trapped in factories, who were trafficked from Bihar and UP, the villagers, to work in forced labor. They work in bag manufacturing unit, cloth manufacturing unit, or in domestic labor also. So child labor exists everywhere. It's not just in the village, it's in metro cities also, it's in households also. So the urban middle class hire domestic servants, domestic work children, because they don't need to pay much for children than you hire an adult laborer. So it exists everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and there was another question around what sort of things can cause a difficult implementation of the projects in the villages. What challenges do you have?
So the first challenges is our program, this especially the child-friendly village program, is a behavior and attitude change-based program. So bringing community to understand or to accept that making a child work in mines or in any other occupation is against not only the violation of the children's right, but also hampering the child's development. So the answer the family often gives that we are poor, we don't have enough money, but they don't understand. Thing is that if you continue working, the poverty will remain. So convince the community to look around the different perspectives. That's the first challenge. Then of course, when we go to the villages, there are infrastructure challenge, reluctance from the communities and government. And so that's also a challenge to contribute. And also cultural factors also affects when we work there. So bringing them together is a huge challenge.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you, our panelists, for answering the questions. Quentin, we've got a few minutes left. We need to wrap up. Shall I hand back to you for summary?
Sure, thanks, Desiree. Yeah, and everyone, please do keep asking questions. If you have specific questions for any of the panelists, please get in touch with us, and we can. We'll be happy to connect you to be able to ask more. I think we've heard it's a very wide-ranging panel, trying to look both from the grassroots of supply chains and from the perspective of investors who are investing in industries that we work right across the breadth of them, really. And it feels like from the answers from the panelists that we will need to continue to have those two perspectives even more strongly as we work to finding solutions around this. Really, I wanted to just ask the panelists to have in 60 seconds, if you had one word of advice, one thing that you would say to those who are listening today about what they can do next to address child labor, what would that one thing be? I'll pass to you first, Kira. If you have a 60-second quick word.
Yeah, for me to address these challenges, we need to have the direct project, the impact project. It's not like something in the mind, but we need to arrive to make a direct project in the local site or in the mining site to allow children to live directly from mining to school. That is all. Thank you.
Thanks, Kira. That's great. Yeah. How about you, Dalia?
Yeah, well, this is not my power statement, but a message from children and community, especially children. Let's just think after 16 years, the children we knew early on are now adults that have never had to work in mines. So they will never let their children work in the mines. This is a new mindset as far as their understanding on national laws and fundamental rights. So the message is that we not only work for the current generation, but for the future. And for the procurement professionals, I suggest let us come and talk to children and community. and listen to them, what they need, what their children require. And I like to end the quote from Satya Satya that the single aim of his life is that every child is free to be a child, free to grow and develop, free to eat, sleep, and see daylight, free to laugh, free to cry, free to play, and free to learn, free to go to school, and above all, free to dream. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Dalia. Josephine, do you have anything finally you wanted to say for those attending?
Well, I wanted to say thank you for participating and getting to know this issue, because I think those of you that are involved in procurement, you play a very, very important part in this. Otherwise, it's a very difficult act to follow, both from Kiro and Dalia, who has pointed out the real change that we can actually contribute to as investors and procurement people. But I just wanted to underline what both of them have mentioned, the role of education. I don't think there is any mother in these situations, or father for that matter, who would like to send their children into work. But it's sometimes the only opportunity for the family to feed themselves, to have an income. And I, as Quentin said at the beginning, I worked for 30 years in the development world, and I take it upon myself to ask every family I interviewed what they wanted for the next generation. And they all said, I want them to go to school that I didn't have the opportunity to do. So I think there is a very, very strong link between education and addressing this issue. And let's find ways to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Josephine. And I see, Meng, in the chat, you've mentioned that procurement can look at how to help suppliers be financially sustainable, to provide job security for parents working for these suppliers. And I think that's really critical. I'm really sorry for the last moment, Mariana, to cut off your finale as well. But I know, Desiree, you need to just highlight what is yet to come today. So I'll pass back to you.
Yes. So sorry about we have to end because the sessions only are allowed to be 1 hour, and the next one is literally about to start. So Mariana, thank you so much. To hear the voice of women is so important. And like we say, everything will be downloaded in the chat, will be shared on the website, and we will make sure that our panelists, if they have any other questions, that we'll make sure that they are able to answer them for you. And just that these are the sessions still to come up today, but thank you so much for taking part today. We are really grateful, and your insights have been phenomenal, and I'm sure we are on the right path to seeing real meaningful change in with this very, very serious topic. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a really wonderful start to the week and are able to enjoy some of the other sessions that are going to take place later on today. And thank you so much to Quentin for bringing your expertise and organizing this. Phenomenal, and really excited to see the work that you are doing as well through the PACE research as well. So thank you so much to all the panelists. And to Stephanie for helping as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.